lift is a good example of not ego lifting. So I'm doing 130 pounds. Lamest weight of all time. I'm only 5 pounds off of doing 135. Some people would just be like, oh, I'm gonna go in the gym and just bench 135 as many times as I can, every single week, just because I can. Or I see that a lot with men doing like 225. They just bench it as many single times as they can every time they go on bench. But there's a time and a place. There's a time to push it. There's a time where, yes, I'll be doing 135 plus my top sets. But this is week 2. I had a top set of 6. It's supposed to be RP 7, even then RP 8, I think. So yeah, good thing I didn't do 135 because that would have been RP 10. It would have been cooler. But yeah, it's cooler to save it for when you're actually peaked in the training block. And if you're curious more on how to write a training block, I made a video and I gave a free program. So go ahead and check that one out if you're curious. On to the rest of my workout. And I'm going to give 2 more examples from this week on checking the ego when lifting. So my deadlift specifically this off season, I'm going extra conservatively. I do have some top conservative singles, but the focus is more so on making sure that I'm acclimated to the weight and I can focus on getting some good back off volume. So that was my top single at 295 pounds, if you even want to call it that. My opener at my last meet was 315 pounds, so I could easily go in the gym and lift 315 pounds on any given day, but it's not the smartest thing to do. The goal right now is to focus on making my reps move smooth and clean and fast, and I'm also focusing on getting more full foot pressure when I'm pulling. This was my first set of 4 at 275, and then I did 2 back off sets of 4 at 265, and then this was my last set of 4 at 265, and each set felt smoother and speedier than the last. So that was the goal, just making sure that everything was feeling good over the actual weight on the bar, because it's pretty light for me. And then same thing on squat, I could have done 225. Like, I could be tied to needing to do 2 plates and up every single workout, but I did 215 pounds. It moved really well. It moved smoothly. And next week, I'm honestly probably not even going to do 225 pounds still. I'm probably only going to do 220 pounds, but it's not always about the weight on the bar. Sometimes it's just about getting it to look smooth and getting your positioning to get dialed in. And just for comparison's sake, the first bench video I showed you, that was from my secondary bench day. So that was my higher rep volume day. And this was my primary bench day the same week where I did 3 reps at 140. So sometimes I'm lifting over 135, sometimes I'm not, but it really doesn't matter. You're following the program. Larson bench, and this is a variation lift that I've had in the program for quite some time. Larson bench has a lot of carryover to my regular competition style bench press, so it tends to be something that my coach keeps in the program a lot. But one new variation, I would say it's a stretch to say that it's a secondary movement to the bench press. It's more of like an accessory chest movement. But I have feet up dumbbell bench. So before that I was doing incline dumbbell bench. So I've been able to improve my chest strength with that a lot. So that's been nice. And then another assistance exercise to a main movement is high bar pause squats. Before that I was doing high bar 1.5 rep pause squats, or not pause squats, just high bar 1.5 rep squats. But variation movements aren't something that you're going to want to change out all the time, but it's going to be something that you're going to want to assess at the end of the training block if your assistance movements are helping, if there's another weak point you want to address, because the main goal of a secondary assistance movement is going to be to carry over to your bench or your squat or your deadlift. So for example, the feet up dumbbell bench, that's addressing the weakness of targeting my chest, getting more chest hypertrophy exercises. And then the high bar pause squat, high bar variation keeps me in a more upright position. And then the pause helps me gain that stability and tension at the bottom of the hole, which is most people's weak point in the squat, and also working on extra quad strength with the high bar squat. So something to keep in mind when you're training your variation lifts. Not something you're going to want to change up every week, or not even necessarily every training block, but it's something you're going to want to keep in mind, assess at the end of training block. If it's working for you, keep it in, like Larson bench. It's working well for me, so I've been doing that for a long time, but sometimes you're going to want to swap out those other assistance exercises. comes to accessories, the lifts that you're doing after your main movements and after your secondary assistance movements, also same principle applies. Although I would say if you're going to change out exercise at the end of the training block, accessories are where you're going to want to change them out more frequently. The variation lifts, you might keep them in for a little bit longer. I do have 2 examples of new accessory movements that I have the training block, like lat pull downs. That's something that I pretty much always have as an accessory movement. And sorry that I'm out of breath. I did 110 for 10, which is pretty heavy for me. And also this cable pulley is a lot harder than it is at a commercial gym. I'm like literally like lifting off the ground when the weight goes up because my body weight is light in comparison to what the weight that I'm lifting is. But anyways, accessory movements are going to be something that you're going to want to change out at the end of a training block, but not necessarily all the time. Just like when it comes to your variation lifts, it's going to be the bodybuilding, the hypertrophy exercises, the weak point muscles that you want to grow. So if you want to grow your biceps, we're going to swap out some new bicep exercises. Some examples of new accessories that I have this training block. I have last training block I had front foot elevated split squats, and now I'm doing walking lunges. My coach Kristen swapped those out because I was having like a little bit of adductor tightness when I was doing the front foot elevated split squats, and walking lunges are a good variation. It's kind of a similar movement. And then another example that I have is single arm rows. I'm doing them not with a cable this time. I was doing them with a cable for a long time. I swapped them out to dumbbell bench, but you're pretty much going to want to target all the same muscles that you do in the previous training block with your new training block, but you're going to change to do some new exercises if this is where you can have fun with it too, where if you're getting bored by certain exercises, you can swap it out and do something that's more fun to you, but also more practically speaking, you're going to want to target your weak points. So if your triceps are what holds you back in your bench press, you're going to want to program in some more tricep isolation exercises. If you really need to work on your glute strength or your quad strength, obviously you're going to throw in some more glute or quad exercises, but that's just my little talk on changing accessories at the end of the training block. Not too often though, but those are my examples. One last thing I'll say about swapping out accessory movements is sometimes it might be a matter of necessity, especially with upper body accessories, because you might be stalled out. Like for single arm seated cable rows, for example, I've been doing them probably for like 5 months, and I fluctuate between 40 and 50 pounds depending on if I'm doing them at home or in the commercial gym, or depending on if I'm doing sets of 10 or sets of 15. But pretty much I stalled out, and so now I'm switching to dumbbell variation because it's a harder variation for me. I think at least it's harder because I haven't been doing it in a while. But anything that's foreign to you, like the walking lunges are harder for me than the front foot elevated split squats because I haven't been practicing them. I haven't done them in months. I haven't done them since I was pregnant. But sometimes swapping out those accessory movements can help you break through a plateau because you might be just hitting a brick wall. You're trying to go through a brick wall. You're like trying to surpass where you were before, but just not happening. So sometimes swapping it out for a fresh new exercise is going to help you, and then when you get back to that exercise, you might be able to lift more weight than you did before. But accessory movements are something that in general it's harder to progress in. I tend to stick with the same weight and try to move up in reps, and then sometimes I'm able to add more weight depending on if it's a lower body exercise or an upper body exercise. But just something to keep in mind. You might want to swap out the variations if you're hitting a plateau. But let me know what your favorite variations are to the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, and also your favorite accessory movements. That's all for today's video. I'm gonna finish this workout. I still have biceps and triceps. And I guess I'll be finishing this workout with my daughter because she just woke up from her nap. Hi, baby. That was a 1 hour nap left after I finish these single arm rows. But yeah, let me know what you want to see in future videos. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next week for another video. Bye.